I think
We
maybe
could do
when we hit like 500 subs.
Yeah,
we
maybe
could get
start
some
getting
merch.
some merch. Yeah, I would like a beanie. I'm the communist Tim Pool.
Although this one has hair.
Oh my god, that looks awful.
This is like all of Tim Pool's hair and your hair combined.
I've just been stuffed in a beanie all day.
Stuff you in a beanie. I don't know what that means.
Stuff me in a beanie, throw me in the river.
Stuff you in Tim Pool's beanie and throw you in a river.
No, no.
It's large enough.
A fate worse than death, man. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Episode 30. Sorry, we waited. With bated breath, we waited.
With bated?
Bated breath.
Yes,
that's a thing.
Is that a thing?
I don't know. I think so.
Oh, well, it is now.
Yeah, it is now. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Episode 30. Some of you may have noticed we did not have an episode last week. And very astute of you. Good observation, guys. We did not have an episode last week. For a lot of reasons. One, we needed a break. We hadn't quit or missed a week.
6 months?
In 6 months, I think we may have missed. Well, I think we did miss one episode,
but that's very early on.
Yeah, 6. I mean, that was episode 6 to 6.5.
Yeah,
we missed.
So that was. I think that was sometime in November. So it's been about 6 months since we missed anything. To be honest,
we had some personal stuff going on. Needed some family stuff, so we needed a little bit of a break, and we had a little bit of a break. But we come back with big news, as promised. So if you're listening on audio, just head into the audio show notes for that link to the Patreon. It'll be in our link tree. It'll be in the podcast episode notes. If you're watching on YouTube, just go ahead and look below you to the video description. Again, the link tree will be there. All of our socials are down there. Follow that link through the Patreon. And while you're down there, give us a like, give us a subscribe, follow us on our socials, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, the whole 9 yards. And with all that said, you ready to get into some news?
Let's do it. Not
that not a lot happened, but a lot of things that did happen all happened actually within just the last 4 days. So that's kind of where we're going to be focusing on is the Israeli-Palestinian struggle. I don't like calling it a war because it's not a war. It's
genocide.
It's a genocide. I still hate that all major news outlets are calling it the Israel-Hamas war, which is of course not what it is. But anyway, that's where we're going to kind of be focusing on. So kind of the big news of the week is the ceasefire and the failure of the ceasefire that Hamas agreed to. Hamas kind of met with the Egyptian and Qatari delegation for it was an Egyptian Qatar proposed ceasefire. They met, I guess, discussed it over, and Hamas had agreed to it. Yeah. This was on Monday. The proposal included a ceasefire, a complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza, an exchange of captives, so the Israeli hostages from Palestinian prisoners, reconstruction of the territory, and the lifting of Israel's kind of blockade and their stranglehold on the Gazan enclave. There were supposed to be 3 phases, each phase lasting 42 days, where phase 2 would have seen the Israel withdraw from Gaza.
Yeah. There's a lot of misinformation going around that saying that Israel did not know about this.
They knew about it.
They did know about it.
They knew about it, and because they promptly.
The state of Israel said that they didn't know about it at first, which is a lie because they were working with the United States.
Yeah, Anthony Blinken, even the Secretary of State, was on board with this. It looked like everyone was really kind of optimistic. A lot of people in Gaza were kind of hoping for this because this was on the eve of something we're about to talk about, the assault on Rafah, but this was kind of on the eve of that major invasion. So this would have been great. Hamas agrees to it. It's a proposal by a third party. American government's kind of on board with it, and everybody seems to be okay with it except for the Israeli War Cabinet. They unanimously denied the agreement. They said, I forget the exact quote.
They said it was too soft.
Too soft.
And
it was too
very biased towards Hamas.
Yeah, they said it was just something that was so far out of the realm of something they would ever agree to. I don't know. Hamas officials have now said the ball is in Israel's court, basically, of they're ready to deal. They're ready to come to a table, and it's obviously Israel can call this off and get their hostages back whenever they want. But of course,
here's the thing. We also speak from outside of Israel. We don't speak for Palestinians, but we speak, in the perspective of what the Palestinians are going through. However, there are a lot of people in Israel, and not a lot of people know this from outside of Israel, that there are a lot of people right now protesting in Israel in front of government buildings to stop this, to accept.
Yeah.
The people of Israel want
Netanyahu's
this accepted.
getting a lot of pressure from just a lot of pressure from the Israeli public. The Israeli public is like really turned on Netanyahu.
And don't get it wrong, it's not because they don't want a genocide. It's because of the hostages.
Yeah.
Right? But people are starting to see through the bullshit.
Some of them don't want a genocide.
Oh, I know, but it's like, I think it's like 20%. But yeah, some people are seeing through, BB's bullshit, because they realized it's like, hey, if this thing was about hostages, Hamas just accepted to let all the hostages go, because for them, they want a ceasefire to get their relatives back. And it's not because Palestinians are dying.
Yeah.
It's because of the hostages.
Yeah.
And then, but this is also, I mean, it's bad that they're now what we're about to talk about with the assault on Rafah, but it's bad politics on the Israeli state part, because now they're kind of exposing themselves to the Israeli mainstream news, to the people of Israel, that what they want is not the hostages. They don't care about the hostages.
Yeah, Israel's position is becoming more and more clear, because kind of like what I just mentioned, like Hamas says, yeah, here, take your hostages, and Israel says, nah, we're good. We'd rather kill you than take our hostages. Like, we'd rather kill you than rescue Jews.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's kind of what it comes down to. Israel doesn't really give a shit about the hostages, not when there's Palestinians to be murdered.
Yeah, hopefully this wakes up some more Israelis, and maybe they could pressure some kind of ceasefire. Yeah. Because, like I said in the very beginning, like episode 3 or whatever, when we started talking about this, when this whole thing broke out, like October 7th or whatever, the only way this is going to stop is from inside of Israel. Realistically, I mean, the American government is not doing shit, as we can all see. The American government has stated they don't, affiliate themselves or condone now that they're trying to invade Rafah. But they still are not doing anything. So that's the problem, is who is going to stop Israel but the people inside of Israel. So maybe something happens. I quite doubt it. But anyways.
Yeah, I just was, while you were talking, I was looking up some quick polls. I was curious to see like what the public opinion of Netanyahu is in Israel. Apparently only 15% of Israelis want Netanyahu as prime minister currently after the war. His approval rating, depending on kind of where you're at, is in the low 20s to the low 30s, depending on kind of the source. Yeah. It looks like he's just not very popular. I mean, to compare that to Biden's approval rating, I don't remember what his most recent numbers are,
40-something%.
I thought it was a lot lower than that.
It probably is. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, he's currently at. Oh no, you're right. He's at 39. He's averaging around 39. So like Biden, everybody hates Biden. Biden has like almost a 10% lead on Netanyahu, to give some perspective to how much Israelis seemingly are kind of fed up with Netanyahu.
But you also have to understand that Netanyahu is also hated from the right. There's people that are even farther right than him. They're just like,
but
finish it off.
Like, I don't know a whole lot about Israel's like their political like electoral system, but there was like to reach a coalition government a couple of years ago, because hasn't Netanyahu basically like not usurped that position, but he kind of like forcefully forced himself
through a coalition.
Through a coalition.
It was through a coalition,
over, but he never had a majority support, I think, in any facet. I think there was a guy who had more votes than him, but through a coalition tactic. This is from like 45 years ago. I don't really remember.
But even through like the left, even people to his left are really not that much more left wing on this policies toward Palestinian Gazans, right? Like even the people to his left still believe in the genocide of the Gazan people. They still think they should bulldoze down Gaza. That's the problem. Is like it's like, oh, people don't like Netanyahu, but the other options that are on the table believe that the same thing as Netanyahu. It's kind of gives me like the vibe of like, oh, everybody hates Republicans or everybody hates Democrats, but when you flip the switch and turn to the other political party, they believe it's pretty much the same exact thing, except it's gays dropping bombs and not, the conservative, Mike Hawk. That was a little pun there.
No, I got it. It looks like it was 2021, 2022 when he got his re-election, so I just wanted to double check that.
Yeah, how long has that guy been in power, man? Jesus, it seems like forever. It's like, it almost seems like how long Putin's been in power.
Yeah, I don't think it's been quite that long, but it's been a long time.
Speaking about like Israeli politics, I wanted to kind of take a perspective from American Congress people. Yeah. So we're gonna show you a bit from basically a perspective from an American congressman and what he thinks on the ceasefire. And
Yeah, this is from American Congressman Brian Mast out of Florida.
Now that Hamas has agreed to a ceasefire, do you think Israel should agree?
I think Israel should go in there and kick the shit out of them. Just absolutely destroy them, their infrastructure, level anything that they touch. Clear enough?
Congressman, the world is calling for a ceasefire. You used to say Hamas won't agree to a ceasefire. Hamas had just...
Everybody in the world is wrong.
Hi, Brian Mast from Florida.
No CIA.
I know what's up.
William Burns has been there negotiating.
You know what? If there's an American held or somebody else being held, there should be every expectation that Americans come and kill them as well. If there's an American being held, we should go kill the people that are holding them.
Why are you so hateful?
It's not hateful.
It is, because my people are Palestinian. You're killing my people with our tax dollars. And you saying that everything should
associate themselves with terrorists. They shouldn't vote terrorists into office.
Civilians living shouldn't just be around terrorists.
90% of it's just civilians.
Yeah.
Lions Den, Fatah, all those terrorist
We
organizations.
say to you every single time, majority of people are children. They're
Exactly.
the ones that are bearing the brunt.
Just because you say it doesn't make it true, which is what you
Just willfully just refusal to understand facts
I literally
or reality.
don't believe a word that you say.
Well, I think that you are a heartless, soulless, cruel man. And today is Holocaust
From
Remembrance
you,
Day
I'll
for
take
my
that as a
people,
compliment.
my people, Jewish people. And I am saying, as a Jew, we said never again, and it's happening
Take care.
now. We say
you are so hateful and disgusting.
Yeah.
This man, in my eyes, this is a fucking war criminal. Like, right?
I mean, yeah, he's basically just calling for the extermination of civilians, or he's calling for just the murder of civilians.
And it kills me on the inside that he turns around and we have factual data that says, hey, 15,000 children have died.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people that have died in this conflict, they are innocent civilians. They are children. They are elderly people. They're people that cannot fight back. They have nothing to do with Hamas. In fact, a lot of people, a lot of polls have been taken over, the past 20 years, and it shows that Hamas is actually more popular in the West Bank than they are in Gaza. And so now you're doing collective punishment on children, on fucking children.
Yeah.
Why the Met Gala is going on and everybody's looking at that.
Yeah, I hate
that
shit.
And he just turns around and is like, that's not true.
Yeah.
Based upon what? So you're just making up your own facts, and then you're just going to exterminate, 50,000, 100,000, 1 million people based upon what you believe to be true.
Yeah.
So in my eyes, with the U.S. supplying weapons and arms, in my eyes, these American politicians should also be subjected to war criminal accusations and should be fucking in jail.
Yeah. While you were speaking, I just pulled this up. I saw this earlier on Al Jazeera. It's from 2 hours ago. It's kind of just the most recent numbers, according to who kind of knows, because we don't really, the numbers are incredibly inaccurate now that the infrastructure of Palestine is completely kind of crumbled.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So as of, this is reporting from Al Jazeera as of 2 hours ago, the Palestinian dead is numbered right around 35,000, but with more than 8,000 missing. And I think those numbers are super soft because there's just so many people
these are
unaccounted
conservative
for.
numbers.
And that includes more than 14,500 children, which is more than like about 40% of that number, if my math serves. And even in the West Bank, there's 500 dead with 125 children.
Why is nobody talking about this?
Yeah.
500 is not a small number.
Yeah. So
500 is not a small
the
number.
West Bank is supposed to be kind of off limits to this conflict, and it's obviously not.
Yeah.
And that's just dead. So injured, that number is almost pushing 80,000 in Gaza. That's 80,000 injured, with more than 5,000 injured in the West Bank. So these are pretty pretty crazy numbers.
We're looking conservatively. We are looking at casualties above 100,000.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at casualties about 110,000 on the conservative side. And so that then by casualties, I mean anybody that is injured or anybody that is dead. And these are people that are just counted. They haven't, when we finish this whole bullshit, right? This whole criminal act that Israel is doing, watch those numbers rise a lot higher, because then the people can actually go in and be like, okay, where are the missing people? We got to count the actual number of people that have died. And I guarantee you it says 35,000, but it's going to be well over 50, in my opinion.
No, I think you're totally right. I think that's probably not unrealistic. Knowing what we now know,
yeah.
I think the numbers are slowing down. I mean, remember they were kind of going steady up, but this is kind of what I mentioned a couple of episodes ago. It's just I think the people that are counting them are dying.
Yeah.
So I think that's why these numbers are slowing down. I think that the infrastructure, the number of journalists, the number of hospitals that was kind of keeping track of these things are all in such a state of destruction.
How many hospitals are left?
Yeah, that's my point. It's
how many are left?
I think that there's probably a lot more people dying or dead in the ruins of what was formerly Gaza that aren't being counted. So I think that once the dust settles and kind of like investigators actually go in, just like after the Holocaust, they kept finding like mass graves and the records of the incinerations from like the different Treblinka and Auschwitz and Sobibor or whatever. I think we're going to find very similar things. It's much more mass graves, much more piles of bodies, just like stuffed everywhere in the ruins of Gaza. And I think that those numbers are going to just balloon to just insane amounts.
In the meantime, we also need to be hyper-focused on getting accurate data and hyper-focused on not spreading misinformation. Because I also have seen like things popping out. I mean, I'll say it even as ourselves. I threw out a story on Instagram when Israel supposedly attacked Iran, saying they struck these 8 cities, just to find out that wasn't true, right? And so I took the post down because like that's misinformation. There was problems between Israel and Iran. I don't even know if they had a proper strike, whether they called it or not. They said they had an explosion in one of the cities.
I hadn't heard about this.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about this.
There was an explosion in.
When was this?
What do you mean? Remember when Israel?
Oh, I thought you said this was like the recent.
No.
I misunderstood.
This is back in the day.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, there was an explosion, and was it Isfahan? And Iran didn't claim. I don't believe that Iran claimed it to be Israel, but I think that was just strategically placed and strategically said so further problems did not arise.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have to be careful with what we actually post. I'm just saying that to leftists. I see a lot of things being posted and then things being taken down. Let's, as Tyler was saying a couple episodes ago, I think sometimes it's great instead of letting it sit back and all the information coming in more and more, and to actually give accurate data and accurate facts instead of just within the day like, oh, this had to happen, but then later on be like not exactly how it actually happened.
I think there's a benefit to like reporting news quickly, but I think that you also have to recognize that you're going to get a lot of things wrong when you do that.
Take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Information comes way too fast, and there's so much, and it's a world away with shoddy infrastructure at this point. So like these things are being reported on as if they're like set in stone fact, and it's like that's certainly not the case. And we have always done what I consider to be a pretty good job of like, doing our best to read multiple articles, get as much information as we can before we bring something.
And if we get something wrong, we will.
Yeah, and we've done a pretty good job also doing retractions for the most part. And we also kind of
take it back.
Yeah, we don't report on this stuff as soon as it happens. Like we're not uploading daily, right? So like we will recap the stuff that happened in the last like week or so. So we have the benefit of kind of not rushing to it.
Sometimes it happens like the day of.
Yeah, so some of the
recording
stuff does happen.
Like we're gonna go off what we have.
And that's just the way it goes. If something happened today, something happened today. Like what we're going to talk about next is much more recent than that's the previous ceasefire story. So I guess that leads us right into this, the current assault on Rafah. So all of the ceasefire was on Monday, and it can't be a coincidence, or at least I would be shocked to learn that it's a coincidence that Israel denied the ceasefire claim, because they had already had plans to invade Rafah. They couldn't very well accept a ceasefire deal and then invade Rafah. I think that they were going to invade Rafah because they wanted to invade Rafah.
Yeah.
So on Tuesday, Israeli troops seized the Rafah crossing on the southeast corner of Gaza. It's on the Egyptian border. Maybe we'll put that image here if you
I could do that.
Corner of Gaza on the Egyptian side, or on the Egyptian side, on the Israeli side of Gaza, troops went in, they seized that crossing. There's been reported pretty heavy fighting, rockets, mortars, pretty heavy fighting as Israeli troops push deeper and deeper into Rafah. It's a heavily civilian populated area. This is one of it's the bottom left corner of Gaza. So as the fighting is kind of on the outside of Gaza, civilians are kind of going further into western Rafah, and that's also where Israel told civilians to go was to Western Rafah, and then they bombed Western Rafah.
I don't know if you guys originally or remembered from a few months ago, as they kept pushing them farther south. They just basically came to like the Egyptian borders. Like, where are we going to go now? Well, now what they're doing is they're pushing them from the east toward the west.
To the west, the bottom left corner of Palestine.
Yeah, so they're the southwest corner of Gaza.
I'm saying bottom left. Thank you. The southwest is the more accurate way to say that.
The southwest corner of Gaza is where they're essentially pushing them. They say, oh, if you go west, it's going to be, the safe zone, per se. But as we know of previous Israel lies, they go to the safe zone and they get bombed.
Yeah, this was one of the very first things we reported on, when it was the bombings of Israel, when they were dropping and telling people to go, this is the route out of town, and then they bombed that route. Yeah. It's a very similar thing they've done here. They told people to go to this area, and then they bombed it. And then now with the land invasion, they're kind of coming in from the east, pushing into Rafah from the east. So far, 80,000 civilians have fled, and thousands more are attempting to flee. There are apparently aid has now not been allowed in for these 3 days. Nothing has been allowed in or out since the 3 days since kind of this kicked off. So aid is crucial, and there are. As always, it was
that's just the conditions were itself.
Yeah, the conditions were always pretty bleak, but now with this kind of new land invasion, things are getting even worse. There are reports of and this is an Israeli tactic that I've heard used during prior physical engagements, like not strikes, but in actual troop combat, is where they will be using these quadcopters to play sounds from the speakers of either calls for help, babies crying, the sounds of laughter, some audio cue that gets people that gets Palestinians hiding to kind of show themselves, and where they're just shooting people. And I think, as far as I can tell, it's they're not seeking out Hamas doing this. They're just shooting out Palestinians. They're just shooting Palestinians that they see on site, which is, again, just murdering civilians is a war crime.
Yeah. And what they'll say is that we're using it to lure Hamas out, and then we're shooting at Hamas.
That's what they always say, right? That school is filled with Hamas.
So basically, people in Gaza are being squeezed like an orange, getting people getting an orange ready for a fucking soft drink. Yeah, they're getting squeezed into a corner until I think what they're trying to do is either they all die or they all jump into the ocean or the sea, or they all just run into Egypt.
Yeah,
so I think the end goal was again ethnic cleansing. They're trying to cleanse them out of the area, push them out of the area. Yeah, they're obviously not mass murdering every single Gazan, because there would be 2.3 million people. I mean, realistically, that'd be a lot of people to kill.
Well,
and
that
also
comes
be way
later.
more.
As we're approaching these famine conditions, or we're past famine conditions, but we're approaching the point of no return. Yes. That's always that's how you effectively destroy a population, right? Is through famine. It's inefficient to shoot people one by one in the long term. It's every genocide in history is running up against this problem of logistically it's very hard to kill 2 million people, and this is going to be kind of a callous conversation, but it is what it is. Logistically it's hard to kill 2 million people, and the Nazis found this early in the days of the Holocaust in 39, 40,
so they 41. Had to basically manufacture a production line.
Yeah, it was. The concentration camp system came out of necessity from the mobile, what was it called, the Einsatzgruppen, the mobile killing squads. It was inefficient. It's just shooting people is not an efficient way. War is not an efficient way to exterminate a people. But famine is. If you can starve them, and the Nazis felt
we already have confirmed famine.
Yeah,
not because recently it was we're on the brink of famine. Well, now we're
past that point.
We've hit famine in northern Gaza.
I think it was mid-June was kind of the date, or was it early June? I think was the date that we had originally heard that was if nothing changes by early June, that's when the bodies are really going to start dropping, just from hunger, and from that was the projected kind of time, is late May, early June. Maybe it was mid-June at the latest. I can't remember.
And it might have been delayed just slightly because of the ceasefire for whatever the 2 weeks was.
Right, that 2 week Ramadan.
Yeah, so that might have helped, but so right now we're looking at famine in northern Gaza slowly creeping down towards central Gaza, and God knows when it's going to finally strike Rafah, but when it does, we're talking about 1.5 million people in Rafah. And once people don't have anything to eat, they're going to have to make a decision. It's either they leave, they flee their homeland, and they give in to the Israelis.
Or they stay and die.
They stay and die, or they start eating each other. I mean, it's gruesome, but that's like realistically, it's just like if there's no food.
Kind of what happens in these scenarios sometimes. And then internationally, Netanyahu's and just the Israeli government is receiving heavy criticism from most countries, even America. Biden was very much like opposed to this. He kind of like said like, do not do this, we'll cut off aid, and then they did it anyway. But Netanyahu says that Israel will, quote, stand alone, end quote. So I don't know, Bibi's lost his mind. He's just like, I think he's just kind of out for blood. He just wants the extermination of the Palestinian people. And
he's
like,
never had a mind.
Yeah, he's
so
fair enough. Yeah, so like he's just, I don't think he really cares about what internationally the reputation is of Israel.
What's anybody going to do? That's the problem. It's just like, and this is what I keep saying about fucking Egypt, bro. Just fucking step in.
I'm glad you brought that up, because this is back to bring this back home a little bit again. Senate Republicans have threatened to sanction the ICJ, the International Court of Justice.
Yeah.
If they issue an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, just like they did for Putin. The American Republicans have come out in full throat support of Netanyahu, regardless of any kind of findings. They don't care about the facts or the findings. They just care that they got their Israeli, their baby they got to protect. Tom Cotton, as you will know, the Republican senator from Arkansas, the guy who was interviewing what's his name, the TikTok CEO, the racist comments about asking him if he was a Chinese communist.
Senator,
I'm
Singaporean.
Yeah, you'll remember Tom Cotton.
Yeah.
He has, quote, target Israel and we will target you, end quote. He wrote in a letter threatening to sanction any employees and associates and bar you and your families from the United States. So any member of the United Nations or the ICJ that in any way threatens to hold Israel accountable for their crimes, I guess, is essentially what he's saying. Any attempt to hold Israel accountable will be met with this, and obviously this is just bluster. I don't think that it's a Democratic controlled Senate. I mean, I don't know how far any of this would actually go.
But let me get this right. But a lot of the Democrats would flip
but
over.
A lot of the Democrats
they don't
want to appear. They don't want to appear soft on Israel.
Yeah.
Or hard
but
on Israel.
let me get this right. The United States, a so-called secular government, an independent government, is threatening the United Nations, the International Court of Justice, something they helped set up after World War II.
If they do their job.
If they do their job, if they do their job. So if it's us doing it, absolutely not. No, nobody touch. We control the world, right? But if somebody else does it, The Hague.
Yeah.
The Hague.
It's just absolute insanity. And this just goes back to this constant thing we're talking about of like this incredible like intermingling of Israel and America, how American police are trained in Tel Aviv, all of like the Atlanta city cops, that was like IDF sponsored training sessions. The NYPD, the LAPD are both, I think, trained in Tel Aviv by the IDF and the Israeli the police and military. How you can be an Israeli soldier, a former Israeli soldier, and run for Congress in America. Yeah. Like how
That's
we
insane.
just like we seem to just not give a fuck about national security or like kind of like sovereignty when it comes to Israel. And I think like the obvious answer to that is, well, because Israel is just an American outpost in the Middle East. Or at this point, I mean, it actually looks like America is an outpost in the Western Hemisphere of Israel. America is a Western Hemisphere branch of Israel is what it be. I mean, we're just the Bank of Israel. And I mean, it's just like everyone's lost their mind.
Nobody touched Daddy Israel.
Yeah, we feel like crazy people sitting here and being like, what is happening? Like, how can we just like have such a huge, and like, I'm not some jingoist that's like, America for Americans. Like, I don't really give a fuck about that, but like, it's just saying that, but they do, right? That's what they claim. If a Chinese company is operating in America, everyone loses their goddamn mind. But actual soldiers can train our troops. Like actual soldiers can run for our government.
If a Chinese company is operating in America, but then you have an Israeli soldier operating in your Congress.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just
you're
like
not-
like what is going on? It just seems crazy to me. And so anyway, that was just a little short story. I saw very briefly that Senate Republicans were threatening to sanction ICJ, and I just had to include that because it's just relevant to like the amount of like they will bend over backwards to protect Israel at all costs. We had one more piece of news, and this was just minor. Al Jazeera is now banned in Israel, and we use full disclosure. We use Al Jazeera for quite a bit of these sources. Like in all of our episodes, we've used Al Jazeera. We use an amalgamation, like I mentioned up top at the beginning of the episode. We use like multiple sources to kind of corroborate and double check facts and just make sure everything's kind of like in line. Every day before we record, we like do a pretty good job of going through every article we find about any given topic that happened, getting all of the different information we can, because some news outlets have different information.
Yeah.
And Al Jazeera is on top of that list for a lot of our reporting, especially when it comes to Palestine, because they have
issues,
on international issues in general, they do really
fantastic,
quality
honestly.
reporting. And I know they're already banned in a couple countries. I know they're banned in Saudi Arabia. I think, are they also banned in the UAE?
Is that banned in Saudi Arabia?
I think they're banned
The
in Saudi
irony.
Arabia. I'll have to double check
irony.
that. We'll fact check that. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm pretty sure Al Jazeera is banned in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, I want to look it up right now.
But they are, yeah, if you want to look it up while I rant about this, Al Jazeera is like a legitimate news source. No, they're based in UAE. They're not banned in UAE. They are a UAE.
Or Qatar.
Or is it Qatar?
Let me look it up real quick.
That might be Qatari. Doesn't matter. The point is that Israel, this was on... Oh, should I didn't have the date? I think this was this week, right? Israeli authorities raided the Al Jazeera headquarters in East Jerusalem, which is in Palestine. They raided the headquarters. They shuttered it. They confiscated all of the like news broadcasting equipment, all of the cameras and news equipment. They just basically stole it all. And then they've now banned all broadcasts of Al Jazeera in Israel. So now Israel has just completely... and I understand they're not America. They don't have the same First Amendment protections that we do, but it's also just pretty fucking insane for a democratic, quote unquote, democratic country to just go in, raid a news station, and then just ban a broadcast. Like, can you imagine if America just raided the CNN headquarters and just banned CNN? Like, that's like actual fascist shit. And of course, the obvious connection you can make is, well, Israel is a fascist.
It's supposed to be a liberal
place.
democracy with the right to protest, or then the right to,
and I guess
speech, to right to
I don't know
operate
that
press.
Is that true for Israel?
Well, no,
Do they
that's
have
supposed
a
to be
First
that's supposed to be like
Amendment, equivalent.
So that's supposed to be like the standard, quote unquote liberal democracy, which is like you have like these blatantly open rules that you're supposed to go by, and such as freedom of speech of some sort. Every country has a little bit of
I'm looking it up.
a little different. So Al Jazeera is Qatari owned.
Yeah,
but you're supposed to have like freedom of speech. You're supposed to have like freedom of press in a liberal democracy. It does change from state to state.
So the Israeli Supreme Court did rule that there is the right of demonstration and procession. So for protesting is a fundamental human right, but I can't find that about free press. But so if you have a similar to First Amendment,
if you are a so-called liberal democracy, you have to have some sort of free press. Right, or else that's because that's like kind of like a quote unquote rule of liberal democracy.
That's what everyone says is kind of the most important rule of liberal democracy, is like protecting a free press that can criticize the government and that can like accurately report on matters of national interest. That is kind of the hallmark of democracy. And
I think one way,
supposedly Israel does have. No, actually, no. I take that back. Publication of a newspaper in Israel is illegal without a permit from the government. So no, the Israeli government does. I guess they monitor and kind of control the press in Israel.
My point is also I do have to say, like, they might have, even if they did have the freedom of press, total freedom of press, they might be able to claim that Al Jazeera can be kicked because it is Qatari owned. It's a state owned. Yeah. Just like what's that Russia
RT.
Yeah, RT, Russia Today.
Yeah.
I mean, there is merit, I guess, that you could.
There's an argument. I guess there's probably a legal basis for that in that argument. Like, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, like as a country, you could probably legally make that argument that this is not part of our.
But it also just shows like how like fucking cowardice they are. Because Al Jazeera is like one of the main news sources in Gaza, and so now with them gone, with them banned, now everything is dead silent.
Yeah, I guess, and that's. Again, Lugenpress, right? Like fake news. That was Hitler's kind of thing. Is like you go for press, right? If this was a source of reliable, unbiased journalism, watching you commit war crimes, just get rid of the press. They can't watch you commit war crimes if
there's
they
no press.
don't exist. Yeah?
Exactly.
So like that's a huge red flag. I mean, that's like
that was the whole point of Al Jazeera right
Yeah.
before they invaded too. So I think this kind of tells me like this is something. This is another big part of this whole ordeal that's going on. It's like this invasion
this is a
of
huge
Rafah.
red flag. Like that's like to cut like media to cut the free press on the eve of an invasion of civilians. Like that's okay. Yeah, that's
something fishy. That's a red
that's super
flag,
fishy.
dog.
And we're not the first people to make that connection. Obviously, we're not claiming that that's some huge enlightenment. Like obviously,
No.
like this is fucking super sus. And like our hearts go out to the people of Rafah that are
100%
suffering now under the boot heel of Israeli occupation.
But literally, I will say literally sometimes.
Literally.
Think about this for a second. Critical thinking skills activate. If you have it, you might not. Hamas says we want a ceasefire. They said we accept these terms. The United States was there. The United States is like, hey, this is an actual okay ceasefire. Okay, that's one thing that happens. Israel says no. 2, Al Jazeera, pretty much the only broadcasting news agency left in Gaza, banned. 3, invasion of Rafah, even though Daddy United States does not want Israel to do that.
No, yeah.
So you have like 3 major red flags all within a couple of days.
Yeah.
So what is about to happen? And there's also now a famine rolling from the north to the south.
Yeah.
This next month is critical.
Yeah.
And we need to be paying attention, and we need to be out there supporting all these protests, whether it be on college campuses or whether it be directly in front of the fucking White House.
Yeah. I think, and that actually kind of leads us back to this our final point, which we weren't really going to touch on, which is just kind of a rough update of the college campuses and the massive protests we've seen throughout America. It's just so cool to see. I think the last time we had spoken, there wasn't any kind of action happening at University of Washington, our kind of local college. Mm-hmm. Since that episode, their encampment and their protests have ballooned out, have blew up, which is great to see. There's just so many people showing up for Palestine at the UW campus. Mm-hmm. And of course, the arrests have continued. The arrests are now over many thousands across the country. A lot of violence has broken out. And by violence, I mean, when the police show up, they do violence to the peaceful protesters.
Or counter protesters.
Yeah, and the counter protesters. There's been a lot of violent counter protesters. There have been, at UW in particular, the reason for such a huge expansion of this protest was because Tuesday night, Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA, he's on his little douchey tour, and he stopped by at University of Washington.
AKA the man with no face.
The man with the ever shrinking face. There is a very funny game you can play. I'll find, if I can find the link, I'll drop it link. It's like a Google Forms, so it'll be a Google Form, so it's not a virus, I swear. It has a picture of Charlie Kirk, and you have to guess if it's been photoshopped or if it's his actual face, and like his face is different sizes in them. And I swear to God, I think it's 7 out of 7 is like the best score you can get is if you correctly guess if it's his face 7 times. Oh my God. And like it's like they're different sizes of his face. I have never gotten it right because I cannot tell because his face is so small.
You know what this reminds me? This kind of like off topic, but you know what this reminds me of is when H3 made that one website for Ryan Kavanaugh, and it was basically you have to guess whether it was Ryan Kavanaugh or Harvey Weinstein because they look exactly the same.
The Supreme Court guy?
No,
not Brian Kavanaugh. Or no, what was his
Ryan
name?
Kavanaugh? He's like he's supposed to be like a
Brett Kavanaugh was the Supreme Court guy.
Yeah. He's kind of like a video producer. Blah blah blah. He made a bunch of movies and stuff like that, but he's like also a major piece of shit. And they look exactly the same. And so they made this website for shits and giggles, and it absolutely pissed the guy off that he went off with Dwayne Wade on his own podcast, like crying about it for 15 minutes.
Wow.
But it gave me that vibe, and I want to take this Charlie Kirk test. Yeah, we'll try
to find it. I think I found it here. Yeah, we'll put a link. It's just the Charlie Kirk face quiz, and like,
oh my God,
I don't know. I don't like just like totally shitting on somebody's physical appearance, but this guy's also an absolute fucking fascist. He's like, if you don't know who Charlie Kirk is, he's like one of the worst fucking people in the world. He's an actual like monster of a fascist person. He's one of the founders of Turning Point USA, which is kind of like this organization geared toward just like brainwashing and converting college students into fascists, into little anti-Semitic, homophobic, racist, transphobic people. He goes to college campuses. You've probably seen him. He's the other guy that isn't Steven Crowder that goes to college campuses and just ambushes 19-year-old kids. He has a team of people that does like months worth of research. He's paid to do this. He's so prepared, and then he goes to a college campus, ambushes a 19-year-old kid who tries to like defend a Palestinian genocide or whatever, and then cuts and edits the video and will post it on YouTube and label it something like Charlie Kirk exposes and destroys woke kid in debate or something.
Liberal
college student. It's just the most disingenuous grift. Like, he's just a disingenuous grifter. He's the worst, and he has a very stupid fucking face. And when I say he has a small face,
one of the first people to go to the fucking gulag.
He's getting the gulag, no doubt. And when I say he has a small face, I don't mean he has a small head. I mean he has a small face on his head.
It's
and
like everything is like shrinked on his head.
He just,
right?
I don't know. I don't know why his face is in the center of his face. It doesn't make any sense.
If you put this guy in Photoshop, imagine you kept like two slides, one of his head, one of his like eyes, nose, and mouth, and you just shrink those, like, what are they called, appendages, and then kept the head size.
It looks like that link has been deleted. The original face. We'll have to find. I'm sure somebody else.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if we do find it,
we'll put a photo of Charlie Kirk's tiny face.
I'm seeing one now. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Anyway,
that's definitely real.
Well, that's all the news we had, folks. We want to thank everybody for sticking around for 30 episodes. We made it to 30. Something I think when we kind of started at this whole project out, we weren't really sure how it was going to go.
Yeah.
We're over 100 subscribers. We have a Patreon now. The social media is doing good things. We got to hang out with Sally Hates Capitalism and Mike from Turn Leftist, and just all of the, we just had a really cool last 7-8 months of doing this, and we just want to thank you guys for being supporters. For those of you that were kind of early supporters, thanks so much. For those of you that are kind of just finding us now, great, we really appreciate it. Hit that like, comment, subscribe button, go follow us on our social medias, and now we have a Patreon, so head over to that Patreon, take a look at the membership kind of tiers that are offered there. As a reminder, a large portion of all of the tiers, every tier, will go to support the Palestinian struggle. So if you feel like kicking us a buck, kicking them a buck, join in there.
And we're talking about 30 to 40% going to them.
Yeah, we don't know how much Patreon takes, so
yeah,
it'll end up being like half of, because of whatever's left over, essentially, because we want to give 30 to 40% to Palestine, and then Patreon's going to get their cut, so it'll end up probably being about half of whatever the tier is to Patreon. After Patreon, or excuse me, to Palestine after Patreon takes their cut. But
yeah, thank you anyways. We really appreciate you guys. Also, don't forget to leave a 5-star review if you're listening to this on audio podcasts.
Those really help kind of just get the like recommended podcasts out. Leave us a review. Leave us a written review too. Tell us what you think. We'll read those out if we have any. I'll check next episode on any reviews we have written out. We'll read them out and give you credit
on
for
Patreon.
Yeah, sure.
On Patreon, yeah. Also, I was gonna say, let us know if you are interested in merch.
Yeah, if you would like to have the little Revolutionary Rhetoric logo beanie, or I don't know, what was something stupid I said earlier on? You got a big laugh out of it. It was something about, are you dicking me, bro? I said, are you dicking me, bro?
Are you dicking me?
Would you like an are you dicking me, bro pullover sweater? I don't know if we could really put that on a sweater, but that'd be pretty funny.
We'll bleep it out sometime.
Are you dicking me, bro? And it'll just have the Revolutionary Rhetoric logo. I don't know. We could go back through our greatest hits and we'll figure something out. Well, awesome. Thanks so much, everybody, guys. 30 episodes. Here's to 30 more, and then 30 after that. Really appreciate you guys. Not to get too sappy. Anything else you want to add? Or
I think that'll be it. We might have another person on in our next episode. Yeah. It'll be great. I won't put their name out there yet, just in case they bail last second, because it happens.
That happens. Yeah, scheduling is hard. Happens. All of us are busy. But yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah. All right, guys. We will see you until next time. Next week.
See you on the next one.
Next Sunday. Something like that. All right. Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.